video is a review of the Edgenuity lesson, proving a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So to start off, I'll show you what I usually do in a normal school year for notes on this section. So if you're trying to figure out whether or not the quadrilateral, the four-sided shape, is a parallelogram, all you need is one of these things. So when you do a proof, this is all you have to come up with. You either have to figure out that the opposite sides are congruent, or the opposite angles are congruent, or the consecutive angles are supplementary. Remember, that means they add to 180 degrees. The diagonals bisect each other, the opposite sides are parallel, or one set of opposite sides are both congruent and parallel. And again, you don't have to do all of these. If you can just do one of them, then that quadrilateral is automatically a parallelogram. That four-sided shape has two sets of parallel sides. So again, you only have to do one of these, and then it's automatically a parallelogram. So some examples of what you might see in your quiz. It says, all of the following are parallelograms, find each value of x. So on this first one here, we know if this is a parallelogram, which it is, we know that opposite sides are congruent. That's one of the properties. So if those are the same, that means to solve for x, we're just going to set them equal to each other. So if I subtract 3x from both sides, then I'm going to add 14. And divide by 6. So x equals 3 on that one. When you do take the quiz, make sure you keep track of whether or not they're asking for x or if they're asking for a side length. So on mine, I just put find each value of x. But if they said, I guess I should put some labels in there. If they said, what's the length of AB, you would then take this 3, plug it in, and figure out what the length of AB is. So for this parallelogram, we're solving for an angle measure. Remember that opposite angles in a parallelogram are congruent. So these have to be the same. 2x is to equal 3x minus 20. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. So that gives me a negative x equals negative 20. There's two things we can do to get rid of the negative. You can multiply both sides by -1 or divide both sides by -1. Two negatives make a positive, and then two negatives make a positive. 20 divided by 1 is still 20. Again, always make sure if they're asking for x or the value of the angle. If they're asking for the value of the angle, you'd have to plug this back in and say that it was 40 degrees, because 2 times 20 is 40. On this parallelogram, remember diagonals bisect each other. So that means that they are cutting each other perfectly in half. So again, x minus 3 has to equal 3x minus 13. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract x. So negative 3 equals 2x minus 13. Then I'm going to add 13. So that's 10 equals 2x. And finally, divide by 2. So for this one, x is 5. Okay, last one. On this one, notice that we have consecutive angles, not opposite angles. So the consecutive angles on a triangle, it's consecutive angles on a parallelogram add to 180 degrees. They are supplementary. So that means 2x plus 10 plus x plus 20 has to add up to 180 degrees. And again, that's because they're consecutive, not opposite. So if I combine my like terms, I'll have 3x plus 30 equals 180. And so I'm going to go ahead and subtract 30 from both sides. So that means 3x equals 150. Divide both sides by 3. X is 50.